Hello and welcome to Good Clean Gaming. I'm your host Jalindo, and today we are going over the big comparison between the two factions, Coalition versus Gaalsien, by the numbers, all the analysis you've been waiting for, all in this tiny little spreadsheet. Actually, it's a huge spreadsheet at this point. So what we're going to do is I managed to figure out somewhat an approximation of rate of fire. It's not perfect. It's as close as I could get. What I did was I watched as different rate of fire units fired on video, counted the number of frames, and therefore was able to calculate the number of seconds between the start of their fire and the start of their next fire. Therefore, that's their, rate of fire in seconds. Could use more data points, that's for sure. But it's pretty, it looks reasonable. I mean, the results didn't surprise me, so I'm good with it. Also, think I was able to figure out armor. And it surprised me when I actually looked at the numbers. And please, 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 if you see something different, let me know, because more data points is always better. And, I can't catch everything. But it seems like the armor is a percentage reduction. So, like, if you have 20 armor, that, I think, is a 20% reduction in incoming damage. I'm shocked if it's that simple, but it's hard to really analyze because there's not really a testing area in this game. There's not a testing, environment. So I have to just kind of play a skirmish and try to video as much as I can and try to figure it out later. And if I have more than one unit shooting at another unit, my data is painfully hard to dig out. So I have to do basically 1 versus 1 whenever I can. So yeah, here we go. First things first. Generally, very high is about 1 second. I mean, I'm guessing that this is a range, not a number. So very high is not just 1 second. It's a range of seconds, like between half a second and 2 seconds or something like that. But I calculated 1 second on the very high that I tested. And then there was a medium, came up to 5.5 seconds. The high I tested came up to 4.5 seconds. And the low I tested came up to 11 seconds. If you guys want to do more testing and want to go through that with more units, all power to you. Just put it in the comments and I'll update this. But yeah, it is not the easiest thing in the world to test for. So I was able to use that, combine that with the damage per shot. This is the damage per shot over here. And I was able to calculate a reasonable approximation of DPS. And so this is the DPS of each unit. Tactical bomber, obviously, and gunship, obviously, because you launch them, and then they blow stuff up, but then they run out of ammunition, they come back. So they're not a permanent unit. They're kind of like a temporary unit. So yeah, there's that. And I'm guessing that some of the lows, for instance, probably this low is probably more like 8 seconds or 9 seconds, so this DPS might be higher. But just take it with a grain of salt. This is roughly what they do. Railgun ends up being your strongest ground unit as far as DPS is concerned. And if you think about what a railgun does, that makes sense, right? It does. And then a base runner and LAV end up being your lowest DPS. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. So since everything kind of makes sense, we're going to go with it. Surprisingly, I guess not very surprisingly, the DPS on the armored assault is very low, but they get around that by having such high armor that they can apply that damage over a long period of time. And also tank for like railguns and other things that do more damage. So they do that. They have their purpose for sure. So that's DPS. I'll also show you the Gaalsien version of this. So that's going to come. Don't worry. I also calculated kind of effective health points. What I did was, and I'm sure there's a better formula for this, but I took the whole amount and I divided it by, or multiplied it by by 1 plus the percentage reduction. So if they had 20% armor or 20 armor, I said that's 1.2. So multiply it by 1.2. And so you kind of get an effective amount of survivability for each unit. Looking at this, the battle cruiser comes out on top. And the battle cruiser is awesome because I also took all these numbers and I pitted every unit in the game against every other unit of the game. I removed aircraft because not everything can hit air and aircraft can't hit each other. And I also took out salvager and base runner because they're kind of outliers. And then I left everybody else in. Battle cruiser on the coalition side came in second. There was only one unit in the entire game that was able to defeat the battle cruiser, and I'll tell you about that shortly. But battle cruiser is the very best #1 coalition unit by the numbers, just using auto attacks and staying in range and not running away. A lot of caveats, but it just is a very well-rounded unit. Very good choice. And also, the like I said before, armored assault in front of your rail guns and anything doing a lot of damage. That's going to be a great, beefy part of your army. But yeah, you put a bunch of battle cruisers out, and pretty much nothing's going to stop them. Unless they get bombed, from the sky, or you got things that can run away from it and blow it up from afar. But they are tough as nails. Okay, so let's move on to and by the way, base runner, surprisingly beefy. Also, support cruiser takes a lot of hits, surprisingly. And everything else falls in line. Let's move on to the Gaalsien units. Over on the Gaalsien side, we have, for DPS, we have Precision Bomber, obviously high DPS. This one surprised me. Honor Guard Cruiser, 73. Assuming all these numbers are right, that is incredible. Because when I pitted all the units together against each other, when I did that, the Honor Guard Cruiser came out way on top. It was the #1 undefeated unit. And I'm guessing that's just because it has enough armor to get by, but the DPS on this thing, fully upgraded with its extra defense systems, is pretty cool. It's pretty good. So yeah, check that out. Let me know if I'm wrong about that. I don't know if you guys feel free to put up an Honor Guard Cruiser versus a battle cruiser, and then let me know the outcome and tell me how wrong I am about this. I'm okay with that. Just let me know, because I'm only one tester here, and most of this is by just pure data. Missile ship, heavy railgun. The railguns did surprisingly well in the DPS on everything. So pretty much your top dogs, if you actually fight all the units against each other, your top dogs are going to be your battle cruisers, not your production, not your support, but your actual fighting cruisers. And then below them, you're going to have your railguns. And below them, you're going to have your tanks. Below them, you're going to have kind of like your light assault vehicles and things. That's kind of like the ranking of who wins against who. And of course, air beats everything, but it's temporary, unless it gets blown out of the sky by anti-air, craft. Then they're kind of weak if they get blown up, because they're dead. But anyway, one thing I did not take into account, and it's really actually an important part, because I haven't really tested it yet, is self-repair. Gaalsien units have self-repair on a lot of different units, and the Honor Guard Cruiser already won on the numbers I'm using currently. Already came in #1, but it also has self-repair, which means it's going to be healing the whole time too. So yeah, please, if you guys do find out what these self-repair speeds are, if it's a percentage base or an absolute base, I'm pretty sure it's going to be like a percentage, like 1% per second, or 0.5% per second, or something of that sort. But if you guys figure it out, let me know, and I will add it to this, and that will change the results. So yeah, there you go. Okay, one other thing I got on here that I calculated. If you were to research every single coalition tech, it'd cost 15,000 RU, 7,000 CU, and take about 1,630 seconds. That is if you researched one at a time, by the way, that number. So because you can research 2 at a time, that'd be a more complicated, calculation. It'd basically be the sum of the one that takes the longest. Let's say you could do back-to-back upgrades for the entire game. Then you are talking sorry, on the fly. Then you're talking 970 seconds if you do every upgrade back-to-back and every engineering upgrade back-to-back at the same time. For Gaalsien, that would be 1,590 seconds. So yeah, you look at that and you say, wow, it takes like 60% longer to research all the Gaalsien techs than researching all the coalition techs. That's a much more complicated tech tree. So wow. Also, the Gaalsien, that's about 33% more research units, and that's a good bit more construction units there. So, yeah, that's a pretty big difference. So, all the more reason why, if you're researching Gaalsien tech, make sure you focus on what you're actually going to use. That should go for both sides, honestly. But for Gaalsien, it's even more important because you can get lost out in the weeds in the tech tree and start researching things that you are really actually never going to use. So focus on what's useful, and don't worry about the rest. Just build tanks and all kinds of stuff, and then research the techs that are actually going to be useful to the kind of army you're building. So that's what I have for analysis now. I think that covers pretty much everything I wanted to find out about the units. I can actually start playing the game now. I did a test run, by the way. I played against the AI because when I played before, and I played in the before this game was released, I played a gameplay on my own against the AI, and I lost. And it was because the AI could get more resources, and I just couldn't stand up to him. I was like, I can't get this. I don't understand. So I started analyzing the tech tree and the units and everything. And then as a test to see if it actually worked, if I became a better player by analyzing the numbers and doing all this work, I played a game against the AI, and it was not even close. It was the same difficulty level, but it was not even remotely close. I ended up going in, and I will admit that it was just the default AI, but I go in, and well, basically what ended up working is I camped out on each of my resource nodes with enough defensive firepower that whenever they brought their sand skimmers or brought their armored their assault vehicles or assault ships into range, I was able to get the high ground, blow them up, and eliminate them basically. And the entire time I'm stockpiling resources, and I made a bullet straight to battlecruiser. I just went straight there, building enough defensive units along the way to make sure they couldn't overrun me. Then I built out the rest of my logistics with nothing but battlecruisers. I think I ended up with like 8 battlecruisers. It was crazy. And then I took them all at the same time, and I rushed through all the resource nodes. They didn't have anything that could really stand up against 8 battle cruisers. They would need like 8 honor guard cruisers, and they had 0. So by the time I actually got there, it was just basically a carrier and cruisers. All their other army I'd already blown it up along the way, and I won. And so all I did was I used the numbers. I didn't even practice against this AI. I just used all the numbers I'd collected and said, okay, I probably should do this. I did it. I won, and I feel good. So it's a success, I think. I mean, analyzing the data and analyzing the numbers, coming up with all this stuff, actually made me a better player at a video game. I love that. Anyway, I love it when stuff like that goes to plan. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Sorry for the yammering on at the ending there, but I'm very happy about the results of this thing. If you have any suggestions, if you have anything you want to see done, you want to see calculated, you want to see any other tests done, if I can make it happen, I will do it. So just, comment with suggestions. If I can make it happen, I will. If I can't, I won't. And then that'll be cool. And then you'll have the guide and the information you want, and I'll have a video and a guide on Steam that I want, and everybody's happy. Everybody wins. So thanks again. Let me know below how I did, and feel free to click the subscribe button if you're interested in seeing more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, keep it clean.